Manchester United against Spurs in the Europa League final. A huge game with a lot riding on it. And it's not just winning a trophy. It's qualification for Champions League football next season as well. It's significant. And both teams have had a horrendous season in the Premier League. But this competition, this game, this final presents a get out of jail card to Manchester United and Spurs. And to Ange Postecoglou, perhaps not Ruben Amorim. I think you can exclude him from that. But I think Postecoglou needs this. Spurs need this. Man United need this. There's a lot riding on this, and it feels like there's more riding on this than perhaps there usually would be for a final. The consequences going forward beyond this into the summer next season will be significant for the team that win, but also, and perhaps more importantly, for the team that loses this game in Bilbao. Let's preview it, but before we get into it, if you're new to Tartan, if you're new to this YouTube channel, please do subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds, and also do drop a like on the video as well by clicking the thumbs up. Helps out the video, helps out the channel, makes me happy, and I'm looking forward to this game. I'm looking forward to discussing it. So don't be shy, get involved in the comments, and let's take a look at how we think Spurs will line up in Bilbao. Right, I've got my Poundland Tactics board up, and I think most of this Spurs team is easy to predict. I think there's one, maybe two players I'm a little bit unsure on as to who Postecoglou is going to go for. And it's quite significant players as well. Will he go 3 attacking midfielders as well as a striker, or will he perhaps play a more central midfield-minded player as that 11th man? In goal, though, will be Vicario. He'll come back in team, and we know what the defence is going to look like. Podo will be right back. Udogie will be left back. Then in the middle, they'll have Romero as well as Mickey van der Ven. Now, that's significant for Spurs. And whilst they've had a really poor season in the Premier League, and there's a lot made out of a North London club having a lot of injuries, but I think they're focusing on the wrong North London club. I actually think the injuries Tottenham have been significant. And it's just, there's a lot of the time when injuries get spoken about, they refer to quantity. So, for example, Arsenal, one of their big injuries is Tomiyasu, and he's been out for like the entire season. But would he have played much? Would he have made much impact? Maybe he would have made a small one. But he certainly would not have made such a big impact as Romero and Van der Ven have when they've been missing for Spurs. When they play together, both of them, not just one of them, when they both play and they've got that partnership at the back, I think if you take Spurs' points per game average and multiply it by 38, it puts them well up the Premier League. And I'm talking in the European spots. I think it's 60-something, 70-something points. It's Champions League qualification. So they've really missed those when they're not present. But they are in Bilbao. That could be crucial. In midfield, I'm pretty confident Bissouma and Bentancur will play and both will feature. Bentancur's a classy player, I like him, and Bissouma's come into a bit of form over the last month or so when I watched Tottenham. I do think he's stepped up a little bit, which is important ahead of a final. Up front will be Solanke, no reason to not suspect that. Ange Postecoglou loves Brennan Johnson. I'm okay with him, I'm not his biggest fan, but I'm also not his biggest critic, but I do think he maybe gets a pass from Postecoglou quite often. And then this is where it gets tricky, because naturally you think, well, Son will start. But actually, from obviously a neutral's perspective, I'm not sure that's the wisest choice. I'm not sure he's the best option for Spurs tomorrow night in Bilbao. I think there's a genuine argument to be made that Spurs would be better with him on the bench, playing Tel on the left, playing Odegaard on the left, playing someone else in midfield and not having Son in the starting 11. But this is what I think Postecoglou will do, and that is Son. And that leaves one more player, and it's difficult really because Tel's been heavily involved. I'm unconvinced we will see Tel in this area of the pitch. Out wide, up front, yes, but here I'm not so sure. Obviously, this is where you'd play Kulusevski or Maddison, but both are out. Huge misses for Tottenham. Now, Odegaard has played here. And last couple of weeks against my team, Odegaard played here, and he linked up well with Tel, but I'm not sure he goes with him. Now, there is some talk that Bergvall could be back for this game, and that would be significant. If he was deemed fit enough to start, he starts, and he would make a significant difference. I think he's been one of Spurs' best players, and he's an exciting young player. It's hard to call this one. Will he go, maybe, I think what I'm maybe going to punt with for this preview is maybe bringing Sarr in and more of a midfielder and you see more of a 4-3-3 perhaps dynamic from Tottenham in this game. But let me just leave it at that for now because we know how Spurs are going to play. We know what they like to do with their fullbacks. Pod will get right up, become a winger / an inside number 10. He will get further up the pitch than Udogie will. He'll come infield and become a central midfielder. He will still go forward. He will still get up and attack. But he's just a little bit more restraint than Pedro Porro on the other side of the pitch. We know Spurs like to have one single pivot, picking the ball up, whether it be Bentancur or someone else. He'll be in here picking the ball up, trying to push Bissouma and the other. I'm using Sarr. Even when I'm talking about it, I'm not convinced he's going to pick Sarr. I'm not convinced Bergval's fit. But we'll just swap it. We'll just put Odegaard in there. Maybe he'll go with Odegaard. Might be with Richarlison. Maybe he'll throw a real curveball in the equation. But there's certainly a bit of paper waiting for a Spurs player to become a hero of that football club tomorrow night in Bilbao. But we know how Spurs will play. And I think what we've got is two stubborn managers. We've got two managers who play their way. Postecoglou as well as Ruben Amorim. Two managers that will refuse to go away from how they play. Even if the players they've got perhaps don't fit the way they want to play, they'll continue to prioritise their philosophy. And I think that's been a big part of the reason both teams have struggled in the Premier League this season. But given that both managers nearly have a fully fit squad tomorrow night, not everyone's fit. Looking at Tottenham 11, and sure, you'd put Kulusevski, Maddison in there, but they've got their first choice defence. I would argue they've got their first choice midfielders. There's that double pivot there. They've got their first choice keeper. They're maybe only two, maybe three players away. Bergval, Kulusevski, Maddison. They're 3 players away from their strongest 11, which is still a significant loss, but it's a hell of a lot better than where they've been at some points this season. I think that could be the team Postecoglou starts with in Bilbao. Whether it's good enough, we'll discuss that in a minute. Now, in regards to Manchester United, it's a bit more difficult because their team news is positive, but it's a case of just how fit are certain players. Yoro's been out injured, he's back in training. Dalot's been out injured, he's back in training. Xerxes been injured, he's back in training. 3 big players back. But will they be fit enough to start? They may be fit enough for the squad, but will Amorim start them? Let's discuss it. Onana will be in goal. We know about his faults. Their back three, and we know this is the thing with Tottenham and Man United. We know their formation. I'm just a bit unsure as to the Spurs midfield. Will it be a 3 or will it be a 2-3-1? But we know exactly how Amorim is going to line up on paper. Maguire will be in the middle of the back three. He'll be posing a threat at set pieces, and that's maybe where Man United's biggest hope comes from in this game, because we know Spurs are not great at dealing with set pieces. We know Vicario isn't great at commanding his box and dealing with crosses into the area. So I think this is where Man U may have some success. And obviously Maguire is a huge threat at set pieces. He's someone that Postecoglou would be wise to have a plan in order to deal with him. Next to him, I think you'll go Luke Shaw, possibly even regardless of fitness of everyone else. He's not number 3, is he? He's number 23, I think. Let's change that. There you go, Luke Shaw coming in there. Still don't think he's fully fit, and he's nowhere near sort of prime peak Luke Shaw, but very good player, and I think it allows you to change the way you play having someone like that in the back three. There's a big difference between the way Man United can play when they've got, say, Lindelof, Maguire, and Martinez, or Yoro even at the back. Now, I like Yoro, we'll get onto him in a second. It's a huge difference from that compared to, say, Maguire, Lindelof, and Mazraoui, compared to Maguire, Shaw, and Mazraoui, or even Lenny Yoro. Now, I think he might gamble, and it will be a bit of a gamble. The non-gamble would be to keep Lindelof in there. Maybe he'll bring Mazraoui in there and he'll put Dalot at right wing back. But I think given Lenny Yoro only picked up an injury a couple of weeks ago, clearly it's not a significant one. I think he was in fantastic form. I didn't know who he was before he went to Man United. I've been very impressed by him. I think his travelling with the ball out of defence is very impressive. He's very quick. He's very confident on the ball. He's brave. Got a good passing range on him as well. Arguably got good vision on him. I think he's almost becoming a bit of like almost a creative player, but he doesn't mind coming out of that defence with the ball. I rate him And I think Amorim will gamble on his fitness. We know Dorgu will play down that left-hand side. We know, I'm pretty confident the midfield will be Casemiro and Ugarte. We have obviously seen times and occasions where he starts with Bruno Fernandes in one of those roles next to one of the two. He'll start Fernandes in there. That allows him to play two number 10s, whether it be Garnacho, Menu, Mason Mount, Ahmad. But I think he will play a little bit safe from the off and keep Fernandes in that number 10 role, which means Ugarte and Casemiro just provides that bit of grit in midfield, because Tottenham could have the numerical advantage depending on what Postecoglou does, but likewise Man United could have the numerical advantage in the middle of the park depending on what Postecoglou does. Now over on the right wing back, I feel quite confident it'll be Mazraoui. Like I said, there is a small possibility he starts here with Dalot coming in at right back. Mazraoui is someone I liked pre going to Man United, and obviously it was a big impact on us West Ham signing Wan-Bissaka, but I think he's gone there. I think he's had a really good season. I think at the start of the season, the first third maybe, I think he was one of their better players, more consistent players. A lot of these Man U players have had purple patches in the season, but I think Mazraoui's actually been one of the few that has been consistently of a good standard from start to finish so far. That leaves the number 10 role next to Fernandes. I think he's going to go with Amad Diallo. I think that role Amad had at Stamford Bridge on Friday was quite important. I think it was quite telling. I think it was a bit of an insight into what Amorim was thinking about doing. Obviously, Mason Mount was the hero against Bilbao, and after the game, Amorim suggested that it provided him some thoughts, and he wasn't, maybe change his mind a little bit, because he's willing to change his mind. Amorim, while I don't think he's willing to change his tactics, he is willing to change his mind on players. Casemiro being a prime example. And I think Mason Mount got an opportunity at Stamford Bridge to almost, well, go on then, go claim your shirt. You've given me a dilemma. You're making me think about it. And he just didn't turn up at Chelsea whatsoever. Amad Diallo, I think, did. I think he had a good game at Stamford Bridge. Now, of course, there is a possibility he starts here. And maybe Mazraoui will start at the back. That's something, I think, if he decides not to risk Lenny Yoro, that's the decision. Well, does he bring in Lindelof, or does he push Mazraoui at the back, take Diallo out to the right wing back? But I think that's almost like if he wants to go attacking. And I think he might start a little bit cautiously. So I think he'll go Ahmad next to Fernandes in number 10 role. And even though Xerxes back, I think he'll just give the nod to Højlund, who is bang out of form. But the worst thing is he's really low on confidence. There was a pivotal moment against Chelsea where he got the ball on the edge of the box and a confident player would have got a shot away. It got stuck under his feet. He took about 3 touches when it should have taken 2 at the most. He lost the chance. He moved the ball onto a teammate, but he just missed the opportunity. You can't afford that. In finals, you cannot afford to have a striker who is going to hesitate, who's going to take that extra touch, that extra 2 seconds, because that could be the difference between getting a goal, not getting a goal. Starting Højlund, I think, is risky. I wouldn't be surprised if Amorim goes real curveball and tries something different. Maybe Kobbie Mainoo is the number 9. We've seen Kobbie Mainoo push further up. He can play that number 10 role, and he's looked all right in an advanced role, maybe. So could he do something like that? We've seen Fernandes in a false 9 before at Man United under Amorim as well. Could he do something? Because he's obviously got Garnacho too, so he's got options in terms of the attacking midfield role. That 2 number 10s, Ahmad, Fernandes, Garnacho, Mount, Mainoo. There's 5 good players there. But that striker, do you drop Rasmus? Do you put him on the bench with Xerxes and try something different? I think if he had another Premier League game or 2, he might try it before Bilbao. But I think without practice in a real live match, I'm not sure he goes that brave. I think that's what Ruben Amorim is going to do. Now, that's my predicted lineups. Now, in terms of how I predict the game to go, I think at first we've got to deal with the context around it, because I think it's different for both clubs. For Manchester United, winning a trophy would be good, but I don't think it's the be-all and end-all. I think the standards of Manchester United are higher than that of Spurs. And this Man United team is not the Man United team of Sir Alex Ferguson. Of course it's not. But even since Sir Alex has left, they've still picked up trophies. They've still won the Europa League. They've won But FA Cup, Ten Hag picked up 2 trophies and was still deemed not good enough and got sacked, because that's the standards at Man U. You've got to deliver Champions League football, you've got to deliver silverware, you've got to play good football, and they want evidence that they're building towards challenging for the Premier League title, because ultimately that's the long-term aim, to get back up there and be the champions of England once more. Now, they're a long, long way off that. But I do think Man United are not only looking at this as an opportunity to win a trophy, but perhaps even more so, maybe their priority isn't the actual silverware, but it's to get back into the Champions League. It's to get that 60, 80, 100 million, however much it's worth playing in the Champions League, to get that revenue back into the club, to be back at the table of Europeans' elite football clubs and start rebuilding, bringing in players like Cunha, start getting better. And it gives Ruben Amorim a good platform next season, because he's not under pressure per se going into this game. I think the vibe I get is most Man U fans have written this season off, and it's a case of, let's see what you can do. Then in the summer, we'll shift players out, we'll bring in your players, and then we'll see what you can do, and we'll judge you next season. But I think to give Amorim the best chance of doing that, you need money. And I think this game, winning it, would provide a real healthy summer budget for Amorim and Man United to adjust that squad and get it the way that Amorim requires to do what he wants to do. We've seen what he wants to do on the pitch. He just can't do it with those at the football club. Get the players in that can do it, and then we can judge him. As for Spurs, the Champions League appeal is there. Of course it is, for the same reasons. But I do think there's that trophy, the need to win a trophy. And I think winning that gives them that. It gives them that merit to some extent. It gives them something that they've been missing for years, for decades. They've been missing a trophy. So I feel like, I hate saying it's a bigger game for Spurs than Man United, but that is how I feel. I do feel like it's that. I think if Man United lose, I don't think there's much repercussions. I think Amorim still has his job. I think they still sell a load of players. They still buy a load of players. But if Spurs don't win, I think Postecoglou gets sacked. I think he might get sacked even if they do win. I think financially they'll feel the implications more than Man United. And I feel like this is a get out of jail card for Man U, but I feel like this is more for Tottenham. And as for Postecoglou, I do think they will sack him even if they win. It may not be immediately, it may not be in the summer. They might intend on giving him next season. He might get a bit of leeway, but I do think the knives will still be out for him, because it's papering over the cracks, I think. Postecoglou's time at Spurs has felt done. But I do think if he wins this, it might get some fans back on board and say, do you know what? He's actually done something that Antonio Conte couldn't do. He's done something that Jose Mourinho couldn't do. In fairness, Mourinho might have done it had he not got sacked on the week of a final. He's done something that Pochettino couldn't do, Hai Redknapp couldn't do. Some fantastic managers at that club failed to bring silverware. Ange Postecoglou brings it. Then maybe he'll buy a bit of time with some of those fans. For some, there's no going back. But I think a lot of people may be persuaded, should they win in Bilbao. In terms of how do I see the game going? Well, they faced each other 3 times this season already, and Spurs have won all 3. I do feel like in the last month or two, Man United have maybe just felt a little bit more organised than perhaps they were under Amorim. I think some of the players are playing all right at the minute. And their European games, they've been brilliant in them. Lyon, Bilbao, they've been brilliant. And I think for Spurs, the European games I've watched, I think they've been good in it as well. The game against Frankfurt in particular, I was very impressed by them. But I do think whilst the Premier League form, Man U perhaps have done a little bit, tiny bit better. They looked good against Chelsea, but they still lost. They still lost that game. The difference is Spurs haven't cared about the Premier League games. He switched his entire person. Mickey van der Ven wasn't even on the bench in their last game. That's how little Postecoglou, and rightly so, does not care about the Premier League games. It's all eggs in one basket. He boldly said, I always win something in my second season. He's got 90 minutes, maybe 120, to go and prove that and do it. And if he does, he can be as arrogant as he wants as far as I'm concerned, because he's claimed something and he's backed it up. For quite a few weeks now, since the quarterfinals, I've had a feeling Spurs would win this competition because the way Postecoglou's approached it, which is protecting Romero, protecting Van de Ven, and I'd feel more confident had he had one of Maddison or Kulusevski available. If Bergval's available, I'll be even more confident Spurs can win this game. My prediction, I think, is 2-1 Tottenham. And I think for Man United, it's clear what they have to do in the summer going into next season, regardless. But what will be very, very interesting is if Tottenham do win, what do they do with Postecoglou? I think that becomes a difficult decision because at the minute, should Spurs lose, I think it becomes easy for Levy to sack Postecoglou. But if they lift the Europa League and qualify for the Champions League next season, I think he's got a strong argument to say I deserve more time. Because whilst one team in North London cries about their injuries, actually, I think it's the other team in North London that have been handcuffed by injuries this season. But they're not in Bilbao. And I think that's going to be enough for Spurs to win the Europa League.